We are getting a closer look at the numbers, specifically here in the Midlands. J.R. Berry standing by now at the big board with a closer look at how these numbers are lining up for McLeod and Cunningham.
There's a reason Mia McLeod's not sounding too optimistic tonight. She's not conceding, as you say, but she's not winning either, especially her home base here in the Midlands. These are the statewide numbers right now. More than 67% of all precincts reporting right now Joe Cunningham with almost 58% of the vote, and it looks like he is going to avoid a runoff and be the Democratic nominee to challenge Henry McMaster in November. Why are we saying that? Well, nothing is 100% certain, but this is why we believe that is going to happen. Mia McLeod is a representative in Richland County. Let's take a look at the Midlands and see how they voted. Here we are in Richland County, her home base. 20% of the precincts reporting Cunningham with almost 58% of the vote, 35% for Mia McLeod. Again, this is her home county. Elsewhere in the Midlands, Sumter County, almost 100% of the precincts reporting she's losing big time to Cunningham there as well. We move over to Lee County, 95%, a loss there for Mia McLeod. And this is all through the Midlands. Kershaw County, 100% of the precincts reporting Cunningham with 56% of the vote. Again, here in the Midlands, Fairfield County, almost 96% reporting Cunningham with nearly 55% of the vote. Over in Lexington County, 66% of the precincts reporting Cunningham with 66% of the vote. So again, she's not winning her home base, Darcy. She's losing here in the Midlands, including her home county of Richland. So again, while it is not official tonight that Joe Cunningham has won the Democratic nomination, it is certainly looking more and more likely that he will be the one facing Governor Henry McMaster come November.
Thank you so much. Again, we've got some big races that we need to talk about, including on the Republican side of the ticket. Governor Henry McMaster has won his party's nomination. He is going to be the GOP candidate on the Republican or on the ticket for governor. If he wins this race in November and completes his term, it would make Henry McMaster the longest serving governor in South Carolina. As JR just mentioned, there is still more time that needs to pass before we know who is for sure the Democratic candidate. But at this point, again, the race being called for Governor McMaster. We're going to check in now with News 19's Rachel Ripp, beginning our team coverage. She is with the Cunningham camp in the Low Country, as I'm sure many people there who are there to support Joe Cunningham are excited to see these numbers roll in. Rachel.
Good evening, JR and Darcy. Now, primary election night is still, those votes are still coming in, and all of that anticipation is building right here in Charleston for Joe Cunningham's primary election night watch party. Now, people here at the Music Farm in downtown Charleston, they're listening to all this music. You know, we're waiting for all of those votes to come in, like I said, and he was expected to actually give some remarks around 9:30, so about 30 minutes ago, but we haven't seen him up on stage yet, so we're still waiting to hear from Joe Cunningham. We're expecting he might come out once this election is called. Now, as a reminder, Joe Cunningham was formerly a U.S. Congressman from 2019 to 2021. In 2018, he became the first Democrat to be elected to South Carolina's first congressional district in over 40 years. Now, during his 2-year term, he passed 2 bills into law while serving on the House Veterans Affairs and Natural Resources Committees. Now, I'm going to take a look here at what our polls say on scvotes.org. Right now, Joe Cunningham, he does have over 50% of the vote. That's at 56.02%, and that's of, in total, 130,000 votes that have been counted so far. Mia McLeod has 30% of the vote. Now, she actually just spoke, and she wasn't conceding yet. She wasn't giving up yet. She was saying that those votes are still being counted. She's still in this running here. So I am going to go ahead and send it back to you guys. And for now, reporting live in Charleston, Rachel Ripp, News 19, WLTX.
Rachel Ripp with former U.S. Congressman Joe Cunningham, who again is on the Democratic ticket to become the next governor of South Carolina. JR is with our political experts now, the insiders, to talk more about how these numbers are coming in and specifically, JR, about the low voter turnout and what it really means for today and then November.
And we're going to touch on the race for governor on the Democratic ticket, Darcy, as well. Mia McLeod losing right here in the Midlands this evening. Our Democratic insider tonight, Jim Felder, you have a theory perhaps as to why it unfolded the way it unfolded?
Yes, I do, Joe. That spat with her and Todd Rutherford did not help her at all. Up until that point, she was doing pretty good. But then I started getting phone calls after that situation. The other thing was that I think she targeted an older population who really didn't get out on this election, whereas Joe, on the other hand, really targeted the young folk, and they turned out for him.
In case you missed it, there was a social media confrontation last week between the House Minority Leader, Todd Rutherford, here in Richland County, who is backing Joe Cunningham, and Mia McLeod. Things got pretty heated on Twitter. Back and forth they went.
Yeah.
And it stayed there for all to read. It was just publicized left and right. So again, you think that played a role somewhat in this?
That played a major role in it.
Yeah. All right. So as we look ahead, Dave, if Joe Cunningham goes on to get the nomination, which it appears likely he will tonight, how are Republicans viewing a Joe Cunningham, Henry McMaster matchup in November?
Joe Cunningham has decided that he is going to make this an old versus young race. If you go back to the Democratic debate that took place the other night, he made that abundantly clear. It's going to be new blood versus old blood, and that's going to be how it breaks itself down. You know, Joe Cunningham has an uphill battle because he is in a Republican-dominated state. It is not to say that it can't be a close race. I mean, you look at Nikki Haley versus Vincent Shaheen, round 1 and round 2, and those were very close races. But I think Joe Cunningham has a much different approach than a more mainstream Vincent Shaheen did, and he's going to have to be able to start playing to a middle that Henry McMaster is already talking to when it comes to the political calculus.
Joe Cunningham also making an issue of the gas tax in South Carolina, Jim. He's basically kind of campaigning on that right now, saying South Carolina needs to suspend that gas tax. And with gas prices so high, is that going to appeal to some voters out there?
That is appealing, believe me, Joe. That is appealing. I talk to people all the time, and they say, when is these gas prices going to stop going up? Can somebody do something about it? And if he is targeting that as an issue, that will certainly help him.
What do you think, Dave?
Gas prices in South Carolina, 28 cents is our state's gas tax now. It has steadily gone up since they passed the gas tax bill, went up for a total of 12 cents, 2 cents a year for 6 years. When you look at that, we're still lower than the majority of other states in the Southeast. We're still lower, and I think as we begin to see what happens to gas prices, 28 cents out of $4.50 is not as significant as 28 cents out of $2.80. And I think that there's going to be a place where they're going to look for, hey, listen, I need some level of relief, but at the same time, you look at our roads right now, and our roads are in the condition they're in because we didn't make the investment years ago.
Sure.
All right, a couple of House races that we talked about earlier this evening that are unfolding as we speak. The 1st Congressional District has tightened tonight between Nancy Mace, the incumbent, who ousted Cunningham a couple of years ago, against Katie Arrington, the Trump-backed candidate. About 6 percentage points separating those two right now. But the bigger story is coming out of the 7th Congressional District. Congressman Tom Rice looks like right now he's going to finish second in that race, which includes Horry County. Russell Fry, the Trump-backed candidate, Dave, right now has 50+% of the vote, right?
I'm watching the ticker as it goes along the bottom, and as those numbers get updated, I think Russell Fry walks away with this one. I think if it does get into a runoff, typically in South Carolina politics, if you get into a runoff, the second place person ends up picking up the votes of some of the other people who were running in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. But the problem is, the second place person this year is the incumbent. He has hit his ceiling. Nobody else is going to vote for Tom Rice. So even if it does go to a runoff, Russell Fry will walk away with this one. I expect to see Russell Fry trying to start choosing some carpet and some drape colors in the next few weeks, because he will turn around and walk away with the 7th Congressional District.
I have to agree with that.
Really?
I'd have to agree with that. Yeah.
What
I'm surprised, but I really thought it would have been a closer race and it would end up being a runoff between Fry and Rice. But the way it looks here now, that's not going to happen.
Well, it could end up that way, but right now, with 50+% of the vote, that's all you need to avoid that runoff. What does this say again about the lasting power, if you want to call it, of former President Trump in South Carolina?
Well, it looks like he still has some strength here, and he still has enough followers here, particularly in that 7th Congressional District over there, that his man got in. On the other hand, let's see what happens in Charleston. Looks like Nancy may pull it out, but it still shows that Trump has some coattails.
Is the Trump factor going to hurt Democrats, though, come November in South Carolina?
No, I don't think it will, because what will happen now, given what's happening now with the January 6th committee and all of that's coming out now, I believe some people beginning to kind of back away from Trump now when they really see his people talking about what happened during that episode. So things can change between now and November.
All right.